A Tiger's Wedding. My Childhood in Exile. Written and read by Isla Blair. Chapter 1. Telling the Bees. I banged my sandals together to shake out any cockroaches or scorpions. The gesture an automatic reflex, like saying bless you when someone sneezed. I pulled them on and ran after Fiona, my older sister, who I knew had started the day's little rituals and routines without me. I followed her like a shadow. I was still in my cotton pyjamas, rolling up the legs as I scrambled down the steps of the veranda and out to the bees. There was a little wooden hive for them, with a gently sloping roof painted white, the brittle paint coming off in my fingers when I picked at it. Fiona was already there, in her pyjamas and white plimsolls, stretching out her hands for any of the stray, buzzing creatures to land on her. Neither of us were afraid of bees. They only stung when alarmed, and besides they held our secrets, the big ones and the little ones. Our mother had told us that the bees had to know all the significant things that happened in our lives, otherwise they'd feel insulted and fly away. Like when Fiona was born, and when Mummy was expecting me, or when the boy's fifth child, a little girl, had simply not woken up from sleep one day. I told them how desolate and lonely I felt when Fiona had been sent away to school, how the pain in my chest had become like a solid rock that threatened to rise up into my throat and choke me. I was born in Bangalore, South India, where my father was stationed during the war in the last dying days of the Raj. He was a tea planter in Kerala, as was his father before him, and I lived there with him and my sister Fiona, 3.5 years older than me, my mother, and our beloved Ayah. In fact, our Raj days were very much alive, golden, secure, full of sunshine and laughter, with the scent of the pine and eucalyptus in the air, and the ever-present tea, and far away, the trumpeting of elephants. There was a bubbly feeling inside me, part excitement, part apprehension, because I knew things were about to change. We'd been telling the bees for days now that we were going home. They were probably heartily sick of hearing about it, but we told them again anyway. We always started our days with a visit to the bees. Not in the monsoon, of course. The leechers put us off, as we knew they would be lying in wait for us, creeping over our socks and into our shoes. The monsoon and the dry season governed and set out our days that had a routine to them, punctured only by little unexpected happenings. There had recently been a large unexpected happening in the shape of a 7-foot periapamba, a python, thankfully dead, which we'd seen carried between 2 poles by a group of 6 excitedly chattering men. Daddy came out as the creature was deposited on the steps of the veranda. He thanked the men, paid them what was expected, and remarked on the python's beautiful markings. It didn't look very beautiful to me. I thought it looked horrible, all fat and grey-brown, and it had this strange, musky, powdery, earthy smell, sour and dusty. If I had wondered what Daddy was going to do with it, I didn't have to wonder long. It was taken to the tanner in Munnar town, where it was immortalised into a wallet for him and shoes and a handbag that Mummy wore reluctantly. Fiona and I were appalled. Dry, the python's skin felt scaly and rough, and the markings looked ugly and snaky. We implored our mother to give them away. One day, when I was very little, we were out walking, my sister, my mother, Ayah and me. I think I was about 3 years old, and my sandalled feet stood on the head of a small, surprised snake that curled itself round my leg. Panic gave voice to shrieks and shouts from Mummy, Ayah and Fiona, filled with alarm and concern, for the snake, although small, was the exceedingly poisonous one called a krite. It didn't bite me, but the reaction of my 3 loved and trusted companions filled me with proper fear. I was unable for days to be put on the floor. I had to be carried, rigid everywhere. I couldn't trust my feet to be on the ground. Snakes, I don't like them. I fear them. I don't like the way they move, how they seek out dark corners. I don't like their eyes, the fact that they don't blink. I don't like their tongues. I don't like snakes at all. Even a picture of a snake in a book makes me shudder. Each morning, we would get out of bed, bang our shoes together, and blinking hard to get used to the brightness of the light, we would run through the red canna lilies to the swing that hung from the lime tree. We'd visit the bees and the hen house and laugh as the cockerel strutted among his wives and cock-a-doodled. Then we would go in with Ayah to wash our faces and brush our hair before breakfast on the veranda. We always had the green and white check tablecloth and napkins on the veranda, a yellow and blue sort of tartany one when we had breakfast in the dining room. In the evening, the cloth was changed to a white one. There was always a jug of water with slices of lime in it. The water, of course, had been boiled. Covered by a white lace mat that had little beads of shells hanging from it. This was to keep out the flies. We would have pineapples and plantains and sometimes stewed fruit, prunes and apricots and slices of softened dried pear shipped out from England. We usually had toast, but one morning there was a packet of Vita wheat on the table. Wheat biscuits with dimples in them. I opened the packet, and oh, horror! Lots of little creatures that looked like small silverfish scuttled out into the light. I dropped the packet. What are they? Hundreds of tiny silver poochies. I don't like it. Daddy laughed. They're weevils, Isla. Weevils seem to live in most things. Just bang on the biscuit and they will fall off. I did, and they did, but I was still reluctant to put the biscuit in my mouth. Weevils or not, it tasted like cardboard. We were supposed to drink a glass of boiled milk, but it made me gag. Mummy felt the same about boiled milk, so she didn't force me. After breakfast, we would brush our teeth and go out and look for Sundaraj, our chokra. In England, he would have been called a valet. Sundaraj would let us jump up on his shoulders and he'd run round the garden with us. Sometimes he would bring out the box of bricks onto the veranda and build towers and bridges. Ayah would join us, and she would bring the dolls out and the dolls' tea set, and we'd picnic on a rug under the lime tree with pretend tea and cakes. Once she found an old mirror and surrounded it with moss and leaves and flowers, and it became a magical glade with a small mirror pond in the middle. We tried to make things out of papier-mâché, water and newspaper. Fiona managed to make shapes, and one creature she made had distinct arms. Mine nearly always remained blobs like fat sausages. We played shopkeepers and bought pretend things and put them in our pretend basket, and we'd end each encounter with, "Thank you very much, good morning." Ayah was usually the shopkeeper. Ayah was small, and though she wasn't fat, she was quite round and felt soft. She always wore a white sari with a white blouse under it, and they never seemed to get dirty, despite our sticky hands clutching at her. She wore a gold cross around her neck and 2 gold bangles on her left arm that chinked when she moved. She always wore her hair in a bun after she'd combed coconut oil into it. She smelt nice as she put me on her lap to undress me. She smelt of her coconut hair oil, of course, and curry, and rice starch, which she used on her white muslin saris, and sometimes she would have a blossom of jasmine tucked into her tight white bodice. She'd soft brown eyes that looked as if they were made of velvet and always seemed to be smiling, even when she got cross with us, which wasn't often. If I was tired or hurt or a bit sad, she would cuddle me and rock me on her chest and sing soothing songs, or just tell me I was her Missy Baba Ayla, and I was a good girl, and everything would be all right. Ayah's soothing crooning, combined with her gentle stroking of my back, calmed my childish fears and cajoled me into slumber. At the time of year when the jasmine was out, she would make a chain of the flowers and wear them round her wrist, and make me a wreath for my hair. It smelt lovely. She'd do the same thing with the orange blossom or the frangipani. I felt the most fragrant girl in all India. And on special occasions, she made garlands.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?